We call him Jim. Well, formally, if you want to be a little more formal, James Mennie. James Mennie, you know him as a reporter, columnist, and editor at the Montreal Gazette. We call him the smartest print guy on radio. How are you this fine Friday afternoon?
Well, apart from being damned with faint praise, pretty good. I'm just coming along. It's Friday. It's the end of the week. And, of course, it wouldn't be a week in Montreal if the Plaza administration, and you have to be, you got to point out the story we're about to talk about. It goes to show that the Plaza administration has really proved itself to be an equal opportunity irritant to business. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. If they're able to make your life more difficult, this administration will do it. I'm referring, of course, to the so-called revision and reform of the city's nightlife bylaws, noise bylaws, which seem to be penned together to accommodate people who, even though the nightclub has been there for decades in some cases, decided to move in next door and then complain about the noise. Yes, it sounds stupid, it is stupid, but listen, that's where things are going. And perhaps the lesson we should learn from this is that this administration is far more interested in getting the cash from the permits, the building permits, the construction permits, the whatever permits these new residences have, especially in the plateau, than they are perhaps in having local businesses thrive. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now apparently this revision will allow cops or God help us, city apparatchiks to walk in on their own and on the spot determine whether the noise is too loud, and on the spot determine whether the owner of the venue can be fined for up to $10,000. I'm reading this off of the CTV report, and I got to tell you, Trudy, if I wasn't looking at it, if someone was telling me this, I'd say, shut up, you're crazy, you're exaggerating. But no, apparently not. This is the way things are going, and there's a real concern that whether in the plateau or whether in Ville Marie, a lot of the so-called, the so-called joie de vivre venues, live music, whatever, that are supposed to make this city so world-class, will essentially be shut down because the people who live next door to the nightclub think there's too much noise at night.
I've teed off on the Plante administration once already this show. I think there's a maximum, so I can't join you in your disbelief and outrage. But I'm there in spirit, James.
Yeah. But I mean, my God, when did anybody hear about this? This is what gets me. It's like, and don't get me wrong, they have made it clear. I mean, back in the day, Luc Fernandez, it still was with Projet Montreal. He was being interviewed. And he was being interviewed by La Presse. He says, we're going to do whatever we want to do. And if you don't like it, vote us out next term. And that's pretty much what happened. That's what's happening now. But my problem is, and I say this about the Plante administration, I say this about the Legault administration in Quebec City, how much of the damage that they're doing is reversible? How much of the screw-ups and the absolute kind of soul-crushing, bureaucratic, dogmatic, politically cynical decisions are being made at the level of the province and the city of Montreal, that, you know what, the damage will have been done. People are not going to take a chance opening up a business, opening up an entertainment venue. And the reality is, despite all the pearl clutching on the island of Montreal, specifically the city of Montreal, and the so-called experts who like to think they're still living in 1967 or 1976, the world is changing. There's a centrifugal force that's drawing investment, construction, and growth off the island of Montreal into the 450, in some cases beyond. And it's not a matter of, it's strip malls and whatever. That's an image that's cooked up by a bunch of, editorial writers who never left the island of Montreal in their lives. But the fact is, the 450 is booming. And you're getting all kinds of entertainment. And there's an entire generation of people who, unlike me, I grew up on the South Shore, right? Going downtown, that was like going to the land of Oz, right? That was the big city. That was whatever. Now, Montreal is not even on the radar. And with legislation like this, with idiot regulations like this being cooked up at City Hall, it's like they're smashing the radar screen. They don't want to know. They don't care. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of issues are raised during this coming municipal election and what the result is going to be.
Well, from one bureaucratic tangle to another, this one is at the federal level. It has to do with those 60,000 civil service job cuts that Mark Carney is referencing. your take on that, James?
Well, I shouldn't be surprised, and let's face it, you're talking about the federal government, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars, but I did an honest-to-God double take when I saw, there's concern that, the 60,000 civil service jobs that Carney's going to eliminate. Now, implicit in that statement of facts, Trudy, is the fact that apparently we have 60,000 people on the public payroll whose contribution is unnecessary. I mean, this is what really gets me, or is a surplus to what is necessary. And we know that under Trudeau, in the decade of Justin Trudeau, the civil service grew by more than 40%. And it was crazy because I don't know about you, but I didn't really get the impression I was getting that much more in the way. I wasn't getting 43% more service from the federal civil service, especially not Revenue Canada. But that's the story of the day. But all that said, it's staggering that these numbers can be bandied around, and we can turn around and say, well, yeah, we're going to get rid of 60,000 jobs. That's crazy. And whether they do it through attrition or whether they just simply do it through layoffs, and I'm sure the unions are going to scream like banshees, but it's just amazing how, to a certain extent, government became an industry unto itself, and certainly is in Quebec and certainly at the federal level. And you have to wonder whether the rumored $90 billion deficit that this country is shouldering for the time being it shook enough people awake to say, listen, we cannot sustain this, and there's going to be real problems down the road. But I tell you, it's going to be very interesting to see whether this liberal government under Mark Carney, which frankly, Trudy, seems more and more small C conservative every day, or even progressive conservative every day, whether any vestiges of what you might refer to as the Trudeau legacy will be left by the time Mark Carney is done.
Oh, interesting. All right. James Mennie from the Gazette. Thanks very much and have a great weekend, James.
You too, Trudy.